Awesome to welcome German national team head coach Gordon Herbert to the Basketball Podcast. Herbert has extensive experience having coached throughout Europe, most notably in the German League and the Euroleague, and in the NBA as an assistant coach with the Toronto Raptors and the Georgian national team and the Canadian national team. In September 2021, he was named head coach of the German national team. He guided the German team to a bronze medal at the 2022 European Championships. He also has coaching titles, winning the Basketball Bundesliga in 2003-2004, the FIBA Europe Cup in 2015-2016, the French Cup in 2006-07, and the Finnish Cup in 2009. Coach Herbert, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Well, great to have you here. And, where to start? I mean, let's start, first of all, congratulations, bronze medal 2022 European Championships. And you've been involved with national teams at different levels and different situations as both a head coach and assistant. And this must have been special for you.
Yeah, it was very special, especially playing EuroBasket in Germany. And, nobody really had us rated in the top 8 or 9. And, we just had a really good group of players. And, I think the biggest thing is we became together as a team and made a commitment. And I think we had 3 or 4 players go down with injuries in the process and all did rehab and all came back. And I think that showed a lot about the players we had.
Yeah, it was tremendous. Enjoyed watching your team play. And Franz Wagner, one of your players, said that about you. He says he knows exactly how to approach different types of players in order to get something across. And I've heard you talk about this before, the importance of roles and identifying roles. And especially in short tournaments like this, it's extra important, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you have your rules, but you got to deal with each player individually, so to speak. And we have performance goals, identity. I'm big on roles. We go through roles, and it's just about getting everybody on the same page. And I think the players knew where they stood. And we were missing 4 of our NBA players also because of injuries or contracts. But with that being said, our 10th, 11th, 12th men were very, very important in this tournament. They were great in the locker room, great teammates, able to accept the role of not playing. And obviously, Dennis Schroeder, Franz Wagner, Daniel Theis. We had really good leadership with Johannes Volkmann. It was an honor to coach this group. And from day one, we had guys make a commitment. Nobody was late. Everybody was on time. Only Weiler Babb had a family issue, which, put him back a couple weeks. Players made a tremendous sacrifice and made a commitment.
Talk to me about, you mentioned some of the talented players that played, and talk to me about the balance between organization and creativity, because you have to account for both in these type of tournaments, don't you?
Absolutely. I think the better players you have, the more freedom you got to give their creativity. And, with Franz Wagner and Dennis Schroeder, to a certain extent, you give them the green light offensively. They have to have confidence in you too, because, you come to the last 5 minutes of a basketball game, you're going to probably need one of these 2 guys to make a play. Or make a play for somebody else, and they have to have that confidence. And I thought Dennis was outstanding as the tournament went on. He deferred more to Franz. He deferred to Andy Opes when Andy got going. He didn't have to be the man every time down the floor or every game or every quarter. He really deferred to others. But at the same time, he was also capable of taking over the game.
So let's go a little deeper into that then, in terms of how you would approach this, or how you suggest we would approach this in terms of balancing that organization and allowing for individual creativity. Are you starting from a structure, and then from that structure, then gradually encouraging that freedom and creativity?
Yeah, we actually teach offensive concepts before we teach plays. So we put our concepts in 4-on-0, 5-on-0, with ball screens, without ball screens. And then when we put our plays in, our idea is, we want to start properly. We want to stay organized. When we feel we have an advantage, now we're playing basketball. Now we're out of the play, and now we're playing with our concepts, which is a lot about angles and spacing. So, basically that's how we do it. The more talented teams you have, the less offensive plays you need.
Talk to us a little bit about angles, because I think most of us understand the concept of spacing, but talk to us about what you mean about angles when you're developing this.
Everybody's got to move. We run a ball screen, say 1-5, run a ball screen. We're rolling front rim. The other three players have to create an angle. And it just depends. It depends if you're going towards that or away from it. And this is what we do 4-on-0. We create angles. And the whole idea is when we create angles, on the strong side, we cannot let one person guard and help. On the weak side, we cannot let one person guard too. And, a lot of it's, I think angles and spacing come together, so to speak. And, we talk about angles setting a ball screen. If a team is a hard show and they're helping from the bottom of the two-man side, what kind of angle are we rolling at? Or we're running a short roll, different things like that. And so we spend a lot more time on our concepts than we do our plays, actually.
So how do you evolve it then from the 4-on-0 and the 5-on-0 in terms of, again, teaching them those concepts within decision-making relative to a defender?
Yeah, I mean, when we teach 4-on-0, not only are we teaching our offensive concepts, we're teaching our offensive rebounding and our defensive transition. So we're teaching all three things in one drill. And, we talk a lot about, 4-on-0, 5-on-0, first, reject a ball screen, use a ball screen, how we come off screens. And, we start from scratch on it, 4-on-0, and we go through it and we build and we build and we build. I learned a lot from Nick Nurse when I worked with Nick with this. He did a lot of 4-on-0, a lot of triggers. And, I took kind of what I was doing in FIBA before that and took some of what he was doing. And I put it and I kind of put together a new package, some from Nick Nurse, some from Kenny Atkinson, some I did in the past, and put together a new package of 4-on-0, 5-on-0.
So you talked about connecting, obviously, defensive rebounding and transition defense. So does that mean after like a shot, you're transitioning the other way to be able to account for those two other things?
Yeah, we're pretty black and white on what we do in offensive rebound, defense, and transition. I think, in certain things you got to be black and white. There are no exceptions. When a shot goes up, we rebound below foul line extended. We crash the boards. Guys coming from the corners. We love corners, but we don't stay in corners. So we crash foul line below foul line extended. The exception is if it's a 4-man out top and he feels he can get it, he goes 100% or he gets back. And then the two players in our slot are responsible for basketball going down to the other end. So it's, we teach this pretty clearly. We give freedom in the offensive end. We do not give freedom on offensive glass, defensive transition. We score, we have a pickup point, we miss. We're 5 guys inside the 3-point line, and now we build. We command the ball and we build.
Well, I love this. And so it's not a specific player. It's not say the point guard has to get back. It's the 2 players in the high slots.
2 players in the high slots. We found out some of our best offensive rebounders are our guards. Just guards don't box out. And the ability for our guards coming out of the corners to chase down long rebounds. And off long rebounds, we're looking for a quick putback. We feel we have 3-4 seconds, or we're looking to kick, come behind, move the ball, look for an uncontested 3. If not, we're setting up with about 8-9 seconds.
It's great stuff. And you mentioned triggers and the influence of Nick Nurse. I want to come back to the Nick Nurse influence a little bit, but just staying on triggers a little bit. Talk to us more about some of these, because triggers can be caused by spacing, by personnel, by being neutral with the defense. So what are some of the things that cue the triggers for you within your concepts?
We really, when we come down, and we run the same concepts in our attack break, our fast break, secondary break. I haven't been big on a secondary break, but I did do it with the national team because of our talent. And a lot of times you want to score in the first 6 seconds you have the ball, the highest percentage. Now the next 6 seconds. So, the triggers we run are real simple. We want to create gaps. We want to create gaps where we can penetrate. And, we want to get paint touches, and a lot of the triggers, it might be a quick ball screen or a run, what we call a run screen, and it can be a quick ball movement, moving the ball to the one side to the other for a quick side pick and fade, where actually we're looking to reject that ball screen and look to attack. So and I mean, Nick ran a lot more triggers than I did. And I tried to keep things real simple in what we're doing. And whereas in the NBA, they don't roll front rim much. They keep it open. We roll front rim. We seal front rim. We want deep catches. I mean, FIBA is a little bit different. I coached in Russia a couple of years ago. I think I saw more post-ups in one game than I saw in about 10, 15 games in the NBA. So, I mean, FIBA basketball is quite different. With the German national team, I thought we had a real good advantage because our NBA players grew up playing FIBA basketball. Mm. Whereas in Canada, the NBA players grew up playing usually AAU basketball. So it's quite easy for NBA players to come back to the FIBA system. And, I thought that was a big advantage with Schroeder and Tice.
Well, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but one of the reasons why Canada has developed so many NBA players, but hasn't necessarily had the international success yet, right?
Right. No, I think, I think adversity, failure is good. And I think we as Canada have gone through that. And I think you're going to see big things from Canada in the next year or two.
I would agree in terms of that. And another part of concepts, which is big nowadays, is obviously cutting off the ball. Can you give us some ideas of some of the things that trigger cuts off the ball within your concepts?
We cut off the ball. As soon as we see a person's back, we're a cutter. If somebody's going to stunt, we think about cutting. If running a shake ball screen, which is towards the two-man side. If that high slot guy is going to come in and help, we have a counter to it. Either we're going to cut the corner guy and fade the slot guy, or we're going to cut the slot guy. So for me, I just it's all about you can't let one guy on the strong side guard and help. And anytime that happens, anytime somebody guards and helps, we're changing the angle or we're a cutter.
And you've talked about that a little bit already in this concept of we don't want one defender on the weak side to be able to cover two. And you talked about angles and spacing and now cutting. So give us the counter to that, because obviously basketball is a little bit of a game of opposites. So you're talking about how to create that offensive advantage. What are some things defensively to take away that advantage in that 2-on-1 on the weak side?
Yeah. I think coaching in the windows, coaching in the summer is a little bit different. I mean, in the windows, we're more of a flat up to touch screen. There's not many guys in the windows in Europe that can really make plays for themselves and make for others, but there's a lot of outstanding shooters. We play a little bit the NBA way, defensively in the windows. I think, we have our main ball screen defense, and then our second one is switching. And then when we switch, we're not in an overhelp situation. We're playing that guy one-on-one. We're not overhelping, giving up a three. we're going to contest the shot. We're going to contest it at the rim. And so, I mean, basically that's what we've done defensively. I mean, I took from Nick Nurse playing straight up. I was always no middle. I went straight up because straight up you can hard show, you can up to touch, you can switch, you can do different things ball screen defense. And today you're seeing 90% of the time in Europe, people running a ball screen or a post up. I think it's tough to play ball screen defense the same way for 40 minutes.
Agreed. And talk to us a little bit about that straight up philosophy, because we've heard that other times on the podcast, especially from professional coaches. It seems pretty straightforward in terms of when the ball's on top to play straight up. Talk to us about the adjustment on the wings, because a lot of players, again, used to forcing a direction. What type of cues are you giving them in terms of their stance to be able to cover straight up?
Yeah, I mean, I always used to be straight up in the middle, straight up in the middle on the side where no middle, but no quick baseline. So that, the footwork was really important on the side. In the side, we just talk about heel toe. Put whichever foot is comfortable. We want as wide a base as we are quick, and we want to create a presence on defense. And our big contain the dribble. Our whole thing is contain the dribble, contain the first step. No direct line drives. And, you can't take away everything defensively. And, we really work on where our balance is in our stance, head straight down, wide base as possible, and create a presence. You have to create a fear factor into that offensive player, that you can guard them. And we do work on technique. I took a lot of technique from Ken Shields a long time ago. And we do work on technique because I think technique helps an average defender get more confidence that he can play people. And, confidence is a big factor on the defensive end, just like it is shooting the basketball.
Absolutely. And some of it is perception, right? In terms of that technique is to make yourself seem like you're closer or to seem like you're a better defender than you actually are. So can you dive into that? Because if I know one thing about Ken Shields, and for those that don't know, I'm one of the greatest coaches in the history of Canadian basketball, technique was king for him, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I learned so much from Ken. I mean, Ken was with me in 2003 with Frankfurt, with the Georgian national team. When I coached in Greece, he came over. I mean, he was really my mentor. I learned so much from him. Unbelievable teacher, unbelievable knowledge of basketball, and he could teach it. And I think that's one of the biggest things I took from him is you got to have knowledge, and then you got to learn how to teach it. And to a certain extent, as a coach, we have to be able to teach what we want the players to do. And so, I mean, I forgot what your question was. Sorry.
Well, it's great because, I mean, we can go down memory lane about Ken Shields and the detail. And that's definitely what I always remember about Ken is how much detail he could get into, for example, about something like defensive stance. And what I'm curious about maybe with you now in reflection on some of those details and applying them to certain players, do certain players need those details and other players don't need those details as much?
Absolutely. I mean, I've had a couple of players in Europe who were athletic, physical, and, could really play defense. And sometimes the more you did with them, the worse they got. They started thinking too much. But then there's some players that really, they really need it. And so, it's a little bit about shooting. Do you change the shot? What do you do? We always try to develop the individual. And people say, well, you develop the individual in the summertime and team in the winter. We develop the individual year round. We're working with the individual. And the best thing with individual practice is you develop confidence. You give them confidence. You're working with them. And so we really worked on that. Not only shooting the basketball, but our defensive stance, our post stance, closeouts, where our hands were, getting back to Ken Shields really quick. I mean, Canada's been blessed. They had Ken Shields, and they have Dave Smart and Carlton. Canada's been blessed with two of the outstanding coaches in North America, and I don't think Canada realizes that yet.
They probably don't, but and we have coaches like yourself that have done this for a really long time at a lot of great levels too.
Yeah, I mean, I was really blessed to get a couple of Dave Smart's players. I had Phil Scrubs, I had Aaron Dornicamp, down to earth, easy to coach, just great individuals and coming out of that system. And I mean, Aaron Dornicamp's probably, as far as foreigners go, he's probably the most professional, best person I've ever coached.
Tremendous. And I was at Queens in Kingston when Aaron was coming up. So definitely I know that. And I tried to recruit him, and hard to get him away from Dave, obviously. So I understand.
Yeah.
But tremendous. And just, again, part of the tremendous Canadian basketball history. And I mean, Ken Shields, we talked about that. Talk to me as well about the influence of hockey a little bit, because I know you're a passionate hockey fan too.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing hockey, and actually, when I started coaching the German national team about 15 months ago, I watched more hockey than I did basketball. I get up at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I watch the Canucks play. I grew up a Montreal fan before the Canucks came in, and then the Canucks. And, hockey's something I can sit back and enjoy. And, I used to play up till I was about 15 years old. And I remember growing up in Penticton, going out on the lakes and clearing ice and clearing the snow away. And we play 3-on-3 hockey, 4-on-4 hockey. When I went to Finland when I was in the early 20s, I played hockey over here on the outdoor rinks in Finland with the Finns. So I really, I grew up playing hockey. It was my favorite sport. And it's something I can really sit back and enjoy watching. I get too intrigued with the Canucks a little bit. They're too much in the press right now for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I love hockey too. I grew up playing hockey, so I know what you're talking about. And there's a certain mystique and allure to it that's so attractive. And so it's something where you watch and you're able to take off your coaching hat and just enjoy it. Or has hockey been something you've dove into a little bit in terms of helping your coaching?
No, I wish I could dive into the coaches a little bit more. And, I feel for Bruce Boudreau right now with the Canucks, with the management kind of going at him out in the press. As a coach, you feel that, and you kind of feel for him what he's going through right now. I think management with coaching, it's pretty tough. You got everybody going at you from different angles nowadays. To a certain extent, if you can't take criticism, you can't coach. But also you want your management, your president to support you in the public 100%. And to me, when you can't do that, you got to fire them. And obviously behind doors, you have those discussions, but I don't think you have discussions out in the press. I mean, the other spectrum is basketball with the Brooklyn Nets this year. Steve Nash went through a lot this summer, but you know what? Management, ownership stood behind him, backed him up. 100% out in the press. And I think when they couldn't do that anymore, they fired him and give their management a lot of credit. And so I think all of us coaches, it doesn't matter if we're in hockey, football, basketball, we're kind of all in the same boat, in this way. And yeah, I mean, we're in a position where, we're in a profession where we're going to get fired. Things are going to happen. We're going to face adversity. We're going to go through tough times. I'm a big believer in adversity, going through tough times. Players going through adversity. I'm a big believer in that because you don't get where you're going to get to without going through adversity.
Well, and you can speak to that with your professional career. I mean, you've been hired and you've been fired, and that's part of it. And then any advice to coaches in terms of dealing with some of that adversity?
Yeah, my good friend Jerry Bestlink, we played on the Canadian team in the 1980s together. He came to Finland and played, and he still lives in Finland. And he gave me the best advice when I was a young coach. He said, listen, but stay with what you believe in, do what you believe in. And if you go down, you're going to go down in what you believe in, not what somebody else wants you to do. And, when other coaches ask me different things, that's the advice I give them. develop your philosophy, believe in yourself, believe in what you're doing, do what you're going to do. And if you're going to go down, you're going to go down doing what you do, not somebody else's way.
I know you're big in this now, is that, you're big working and developing younger coaches in Europe and I think it's the FACC program. First of all, can you talk about that? And then I want to ask you a few questions about that, because that's quite the thing in terms of you being able to give back now to so many coaches.
Yeah, I actually started in 2008. I think it was the first year. And, Coach Pesic, the Serbian national team coach, is one of the most famous coaches in Europe, started it up with Michael Schwartz from Germany. And back then it was just taking one coach from every federation in Europe on a 3-year program. And, there was a group of us, about 6 coaches. We came in and we gave lectures and on-court lectures, group things in the classroom. Really where it was, developing coaches, and coaches could learn, and there was a great group of coaches coming in every year, and different coaches, and now I think they're in their 14th or 15th year, and it's turned into a really outstanding program.
Absolutely. And to be able to have access to people like yourself in terms of development is just immeasurable. And talk to me a little bit about it, because I think, again, like a lot of coaches can learn a lot of the X's and O's and a lot of what to coach on their own. But talk to me about the importance of the how to teach, which I know is really passionate for you.
Yeah, I just think you got to know what you want, and then you got to know how to teach it. And I think it helped me going through college, going through teaching school, doing my master's degree, and learning how to teach, not basketball, but then when I became more involved in basketball, you had to with players. I mean, Peter Jensen, the Canadian national team sports psychologist, talks about the 3 factors that and it's same with coaches. I mean, you have to spend a lot of time in self-development. What's the investment you're going to put in yourself? And we're always learning. I mean, I learned a lot even after I left Frankfurt about 4 years ago, working with Nick Nurse, working with Kenny Atkinson, coaching in Russia. Even at 60 years old, I was learning and changing things and adapting things. And I mean, this is a great profession. We're always learning and always, and if you don't get better, you're going to be out of it pretty soon.
You mentioned Peter Jensen and the 3 factors. Can you share those with us?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Peter's he really helped me with goal setting, performance goals, identity. We did a lot of work together over the last 3-4 years when I was with Basketball Canada. Tremendous person. Basketball Canada is very lucky to have him. I tried to take him away and get him to Germany. Couldn't get him. 3 factors is, one's your genes. 2 is your upbringing, which, different things happen in your upbringing. And 3 is the investment you have in yourself. And Peter talks about, this 3rd one is we can control. What kind of investment are we going to make in ourselves as a player or as a coach or whatever? And, the first 2 factors, you don't have much control over it. It is what it is to a certain extent. But that 3rd factor is, what makes players. And we as coaches, we want players who want to make an investment in themselves, who want to be better. The worst thing to do is go to a gym and be there with somebody who doesn't really want to be there, who doesn't want to get better. So, Peter's written a bunch of books, and for me, I've given that book to coaches in Europe, and my assistant coaches with the national team here, I've given that book to them, and they've read it, and it's a great book.
My takeaway, Ignite the Third Factor, is the book I've read.
Yeah.
And my takeaway from that one, the line that I love is manage yourself so others don't have to. And that's something that I've constantly shared, not just for me, but shared with players to get them to understand that, again, connecting the fact that we don't want to spend time managing you, just like you don't want to spend time managing us.
Right. No, that's a great line. I mean, to me, that's one of the best books I've read as far as.
It's tremendous.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's a simple read too. It's just down to earth, simple read, really good.
One of the other things that you talked about is kind of your evolution as a teacher of coaches, and saying that you used to teach a lot of defense and now you focus a little bit more on teaching offensive concepts and clinics. Can you share why you've gone through that evolution, and then maybe some of the ideas that you do share?
Yeah, I think when I started coaching, I was probably about 75 defense, 25 offense, and now I'm the opposite. I think offense takes longer to teach. Especially today, in today's game, against the different defenses, and I think it takes longer to teach, and it's probably more interesting. You can be a lot more positive. As I've got older, I've got a lot more positive, and and I just I mean, David Blatt told me, one of the best coaches in Europe, and he's going through a tough time, health problem right now, really tough. But I still stay in contact with him a lot. He's another guy I tried to get to Germany, but Nick wouldn't let him go. He's a guy who really got me going. You got to teach more offense. You got to focus more on offense. And now, when I start camp or this and that, we do 3 days of offensive concepts and what we want to do. We don't get into defense with the national team until day 4 or day 5. And it just takes longer to teach. And also, I think you get players more in tune with stuff, right, when you get into offense. And then you go to the defensive stuff. Because you start with defense, it kind of turns into a somewhat of a negative, I found sometimes in the club. You start with offense, it becomes, it's enjoyable, it's fun. You create an atmosphere, a little bit more of an atmosphere, and now you get into the defensive stuff. So, it's been interesting. What I do now, I didn't do any of this 10, 15 years ago, as far as what I do.
Well, it speaks to your development as a coach and constantly striving to be better and do better. And, you talked about connecting it a little bit to the player enjoyment, which I agree with is a huge factor. I know there's a lot of coaches that maybe are fearful of not doing defense right away or something like that, because in their mind, it diminishes the importance of it for their players. Can you talk about how you account for that? Because defense is obviously still important. It's just that you're not starting with it.
No, I tell the players right when we begin with. I mean, we're going to go as far. We're going to be really good defense, and we're going to rebound the basketball. And to be successful, we need everybody to do dirty work, and we talk about that right away. But we also say, hey, it's going to take a little bit longer to put our offense in because we play with concepts, angles, and spacing. We're not just putting in plays and asking people to be robots. We're putting in stuff where people have a chance to use their mind, be creative. And so I think it's important to explain to the team, defense is going to be a constant for us. Offense could be a little bit roller coaster. We're not going to shoot the ball great every game. But defensively, we can be there every game. Rebounding, we can be there every game. Our defensive transition has to be there every game. And but we talk about this, and for me it's we teach a lot of stuff, but to a certain extent, it's what we emphasize, and we get back and we emphasize that later. But and I flip-flopped it. I used to do defense for 7-8 days when I started, and now I flip-flop that and I start with offense.
You talked about some of the black and white on defense already, and that is another part of it, that there's a little bit more black and white on defense in terms of the structure. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, defense is equal opportunity. We talk about our roles, but we say before everybody, you got to defend your position, you got to rebound your position, you got to be able to execute an half-court offense. Everybody's got to be able to do that. There's no exceptions. And now comes our specific roles after that. And so, I mean, and defensive, we talk about our defensive transition. What are we doing? Where are we? When the ball's on one side, where are we? Pick and roll. A little bit different than the NBA. We deny stuff, but we also go to an open stance. Defensive transition, we're open. Isolation, we're open. Pick and roll, we're open. So there's certain things we talk about: deny stance, open stance, but we try to be black and white what we're doing. This is the way we do it. Eh? And the contrary, on the offensive end, we're going to give you a little more freedom. But this is the way we're doing things on the defensive end.
Are there areas where defensive decision-making and concepts apply in the modern game as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've had trouble with switching a little bit because players want to overhelp, and we don't overhelp now. And we play post defense a little bit in Europe differently. I mean, we force baseline in the post still, and we'll trap everything in the post a lot of times. We won't let people play. So. We really put in a defensive system, and it's something I still, I've made some small adjustments in it, but it's still something. Hey, this is the system we're doing. This is what we're doing, and we build it 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4. We build it. This is what we're doing, and for me, it's pretty black and white. But there's, but players have to make decisions sometimes too, and when we make decisions, sometimes we make the wrong decision. No problem. Effort mistakes, problem.
It's great stuff. And I'm wondering, because I've heard this from other coaches a little bit, not to get into the politics of the FIBA windows, because we don't want to get into that. But a certain amount of the FIBA windows from a pure coaching perspective is kind of fun, isn't it? Because you've got to constantly basically coach a new group and figure out solutions as a coach.
Yeah, we have 3 days. We have 3 days to get ready to play a game in game 4 usually. And
remove the pressure from a pure coaching perspective. It's kind of fun, isn't it?
It's different.
Yeah.
Especially when you haven't coached. I mean, with the German team, I just coached in the windows in the summertime. And then day 2, coaching the windows, I'm exhausted.
No doubt.
But you have to be really precise what you're doing, and keep it real simple. And in the windows, we put our offensive concepts in, we put 3 plays in, we put our defensive system in, we put our special situations in. That's what we had. Big believer in special situations, and in the windows, a lot of times we just ran 2 plays. That's all we ran. And we had to win on the defensive end. Because, we had no EuroLeague players, no NBA players. We only had players from the German league, and some of those players did not have big roles on their team. So, and some players were hurt. So it was a challenge. I mean, challenge is a good word. It's a good challenge.
Yeah, it's basically like a different team each time you're coaching, and got to be unique and different in terms of that. And I know special situations are so important to you. So talk to us a little bit about how do you develop special situations and your team's understanding of those type of situations that you feel are important for success?
Yeah, I mean, in the windows, even with the windows, sideline out of bounds, offensive end, 14 seconds, we have 2 basic things we're doing. 10 seconds, something different. 7 seconds, we have something different. 3 seconds, 1 second. Same with baseline. We have all situations, but in the windows, we only have one thing we're doing at that time. We can't put in 2 or 3 different things with 1 second. We have one thing. Same thing in full court. We do the full court, same thing. They're shooting a free throw. We have 5 seconds to get the ball down the floor. We have to have something that we run where we create a situation. We don't have time to run a play. We have to put players in a situation where they can make a play. And so, my biggest thing is we have to be prepared for those situations, that the players feel confident when, hey, 1 second on the clock, baseline, we know what we're doing. And for me, special situations can really change the game. You turn the ball over at that situation, it's a layup going down the other end. Momentum changes, different things. So, and you score in that situation, it really creates momentum for you. So, and we work a lot on defensive special situations too. When we foul, where we foul, fouls to give. We work on that situations too.
So in an ideal situation, say high school, college, your pro team, where you have multiple practices to be able to get ready, so not the FIBA windows, how are you developing these special situations? Are you doing them every day? Are you peppering them into practice at different times? Or is this continuous phase within practice that you're doing it?
Yeah, we teach it 5-on-0. And then there are a lot of times where I might not put something in, but I might draw it up during practice and then put it in. Because once, in practice, if you're running early direct and you call early direct, everybody knows what you're doing. So there's certain situations in practice that situations that I might use as an ATO, I'll run in practice. And it gives me practice doing it, and it gives them practice, can they execute it? But also we play what we call, we might play, especially in the middle of the week, we might play a 10-point game. We might put 2 minutes, then say the score is 10-7. We'll put 2 minutes on the clock, the last 2 minutes, and we'll play that and we'll say each team has 1 foul to give or no fouls to give. And so now special situations come into effect on both the defensive end and the offensive end. And so we're learning how to play those situations in a practice situation. For me, you can't expect players to go into a game situation and do things we haven't done in practice.
It's great stuff. And you referenced coaching with Nick Nurse. So I'm curious then, one of the things that I think from the outside looking in is his adaptability is one of his strengths, his willingness to try different things. Is that something that you took away from him, or what are some of the other things that you took away from being around him?
No, absolutely. He's not afraid. I remember in the World Cup, we were playing Lithuania we playing Australia, and he came out and played a triangle and 2 to begin the second half.
I remember that.
He's not afraid to do different things. And so, it's one thing don't be afraid. Be aggressive. Be aggressive as a coach. Don't be afraid to try different things. And he was a master at that. And his tempo in practice was outstanding. A little bit different, something I had to adjust to. Hey, let's go. His tempo in practice was really different than I was used to in Europe. His philosophy, the things he did, was completely different what I was used to in Europe. So it was very interesting working with him. And then I would coach his system in the windows when he was with the NBA team, but he also gave me the freedom, which was really good, about, hey, you have this, but don't be afraid to try something different depending on what your personnel is and this and that. So he was really open to different things. He's just a really good basketball mind. The one thing I really respect of Nick, he started in Europe. He started in Great Britain. He was in Belgium, G League, assistant. He went through the steps of working his way up to get where he is today. To me, it's tremendous respect. And there are, there's quite a few coaches like that too.
You referenced the pace in practice, the tempo in practice. Is that quick transitions between drills? So he's not doing very long in drills, or is it just the tempo within each of the drills or each of the games that you're playing?
Both. I mean, it's boom, going from one drill to another drill. I've seen other coaches do that now too, real quick tempo. There's not much walking, you got to think, you got to move, you got to go. And, it was really good.
Did players seem to enjoy it? Because generally when you do that, the duration of practice is a little lower, but the intensity is a little bit higher.
Absolutely. I think players, the 2.5 hour, 3 hour practice in Europe are kind of tough sometimes. And we tried to keep things, you got warm-ups. We talked about 50 minutes. Hey, let's get things accomplished in 50 minutes. And now we got time for individual things after practice. And, the tendency in Europe sometimes is some coaches will go 3-4 hours. And,
that doesn't align with the modern player, does it?
No. And the two-a-days are going away in Europe too. I mean, it's tough. 2-a-days are tough on coaches too. I mean, I prefer a little bit, get our individual work done, get in the weight room, come in, we get 50 minutes, we finish up with some individual and we're out of here. Guys are home with their families for dinner type thing.
And that, of course, you talked about already, and the importance of accounting for individuals within your practices. And that allows for that. And that's the model I've seen in the NBA recently is obviously some players come in pre-practice, some players are post-practice, but the middle is everyone together for not a very long time. So that's one of the reasons this is valuable too, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Europe's taken that from the NBA. I mean, we used to have, 2-hour practices in the morning, 2.5-hour practice in the evening. And, a lot of times by the end of the season, we have such a long season as it is, players are dead. And so I think a lot of clubs in Europe have kind of gone that way. All right, start with the end in mind. What's our long-term goal? And I have players set this. I put them in groups of 3 or 4. They discuss, we talk about it, we come up with our long-term goal. I don't tell them what our goal is. I want them to decide what our goal is. They'll set higher goals, and now I can always come back to them and challenge them. Hey, you set this goal, and the stuff you're doing off the floor, or this or that, or on the floor doesn't go to this goal. Then we set performance goals, which are measurable. Every day we set 3. We do this as a team. And then we go into the identity. And with the identity, we want 3 things. We talk about 1, how hard we're going to play, how smart we're going to play. And then the third one would be our behavior. So with the German team this summer, we came up with a toughness, togetherness, communication. The last 2, we never really hit how smart we were going to play, but this is what they decided. And for me, the identity is more important than the performance goals and the goals. If we don't have an identity, we're not getting to the goals. So the identity is something we feel as a team and something the outside sees. If you saw any great team, I mean, San Antonio Spurs, you saw an identity of the way they played at that one time when they had Duncan, Parker. Philadelphia Flyers, way back in the day, you saw an identity, the way they played. I mean, any great sports team, you see a real identity. Argentina, you saw a real good identity in the World Cup right now in soccer. So we're really big on identity. And then with roles, very big on roles. Coaches, we talk. I sit down with each player and I tell them what their role is going to be. And then I put them in a circle, the whole team, and I tell them what player A's role is, what player B's role is, what player C. Everybody knows what everybody else's role is, that we're all on the same page. And with that being said, roles can change, injuries, performance, different things. Some coaches don't believe in a lot of roles. I believe in roles. I just believe in, this is where we're at. This is where we're going. Everybody on the same page, and we're going forward. And sometimes, it's tough. I mean, you got to get players to accept their roles. And the one thing I ask players, two things. I say, hey, are you coachable? One, and two, can I be honest with you? And, the best coaches I played for were straightforward. You might not like what they told you, but I tell you what, you respected it later. And it's not easy as a coach to be real straightforward, tell them what you think. But I think for me, that's what I've really tried to do, be straightforward. And the other thing I've tried to do, as a head coach, you can't have a bad practice. If you have a bad practice, you're giving your players a chance to have a bad practice. Second thing, we all want our team to be a team, players to be a team. Coaching staff has to set the example of what a team is. And now our team has a chance to be a team. If our coaching staff is not a team, if players don't see a team, we can't expect our players to be a team. And that's one of the biggest dynamics in this thing is getting a group of 12 players to become a team. But that also go back to goal setting, identity, roles, everything kind of chimes together in what you're doing. And, but I'll tell you one more thing about Peter Jensen. He told me, I always said there's no I in team. Peter told me there is I in team. We need the individual talents, but first we need team. And that's what I really tried to stress with the German team this summer. Hey, we need Dennis Schroeder. We need your individual talents. Franz Wagner, we need your individual talents. Hey, we need everybody's individual talents. But first we need team, and then we need those individual talents. It made really a lot of sense with what Peter said.
I love that phrasing. That's just a tremendous phrasing and a great way of putting it because, again, individuals matter, and they matter obviously more within the team. Just real quick, I want to ask about, so telling players the roles. You're sorting that with the player prior to telling the whole team? Is that how it works in terms of the progression?
Yeah, I'll sit down with the coaches. We'll discuss each player. I want the assistant coaches to have a say in what we're doing and listen. I'll write down the role of every player, and I'll meet with each player individually, and then I'll meet with the group to explain each player's role. And when I meet with each player, I'll talk about expectations. What the role is, the expectations, what they need to do better, what they're doing well. First of all, I'll start with what they're doing well, because positive stuff is good right away, and then what they need to do better. Usually 3 positives to 1 negative, and then I'll sit around with the group, and I'll explain each player's role to the whole group. We're on the same page, and some players, in the individual thing, some players go out there a little bit disappointed, a little bit this and that. And, it's my job to tell them how they can change that. What can they do better to get a better role? But I also tell players this, hey, players tell us coaches what their role should be, how they practice, what they do in practice. And they tell us, and a lot of times they make the decision pretty easy for us. With that being said, I don't start our 5 best players. You need players in that starting lineup that can impact the game without scoring. And for me, the 6th and 7th men are very, very important, that they come into a basketball game and you become stronger. They bring something specific to the table that you become stronger because of what they bring. So many teams, when they make those first 2 subs, they become weaker. We want to become stronger on those first 2 subs. And, but when you build a team, you need to find you need players that can impact the game without scoring. Sometimes it's harder to find those players than it is, Aaron Dornekamp could impact the game without scoring. Phil Scruggs needed to score to impact the game. But you need both.
Absolutely. Just tremendous stuff, Coach. And just as we wrap up, any other advice to coaches on their coaching journey? You've been on an incredible journey and incredible success at so many levels. So anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, no, my journey's been a little bit tough. I mean, I coached 3 EuroLeague teams, and I had some tough health problems, and it kind of put me in the sidelines for about 4 or 5 years. But I was fortunate that, Frankfurt really took care of me, and a lot of teams wouldn't have helped me through stuff. I just think you got to try. I think you got to go day by day. You can control how you do things. You can't control what other people think on the outside. Right now, I think the old kind of negative, ruthless coaching style has kind of gone away a little bit in Europe. More the new positive, energetic styles come in, but really where you hold players accountable still. I think one of the big things with coaches is you got to educate yourself, develop a philosophy, adapt that philosophy as you go along, and really focus on self-development, getting yourself better. And I think the more times you get around different coaches, the more you'll learn.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, as a proud Canadian, I was proud to watch you coach the German national team and have great success, and was cheering for you. And I cannot thank you enough for sharing the game with us. Just so many amazing insights for all of us as coaches.
My pleasure. Thank you.